I am happy now to start up the session where we will be focusing on risk identification and risk mitigation for Ukraine. And happy that we have Bogdan sitting in your car, Bogdan, but we can hopefully hear you loud and clear and busy on the road. And then we have Ihor also to present with your experience about these topics. So please move on, Bogdan, and take the microphone. Looking forward to it.
Hello, I'm Bogdan. Yes, I'm in the car, and I'll run this presentation. This presentation will be about Ukraine, as Michael said, and we'd like to look deeply into Ukraine timber risk profile. And all of this information that we'll provide on this presentation will be preferred by nature and opinion or recommendation related to how to mitigate the risk from Ukraine. And at the same time, what is important is that we are thinking on the same way as the representative for the competent authority said. It's very important to have a local person from Ukraine in order to understand all the information from the documents and from the supply chain. On this presentation and also on the risk assessment for Ukraine, we are two people that are working. One of them is Ihor, is our local expert from Ukraine. He's a professor at Ukrainian National Forest University in Lviv. And he worked with different projects talking about forest policy and the governance. And at the same time, Ihor is a FSC COC auditor and is our support for activities developed in this country. I'm Bogdan. I'm a sourcing specialist based in Romania. My area of interest is forest policy and interaction with social and environmental responsibilities. And I'm also a FSC COC auditor, and I'm helping organizations to meet EOTR requirements or their own policy. But what we'll talk about today is that if you already search on our searching hub, you'll see that for Ukraine we have a page, but we don't have a timber risk assessment for this country. And what we'd like to do in the next period of time is develop the risk assessment for Ukraine. Right now we are working on this document, and until the end of June, we will try to have a public a first draft of this report that will be on public consultation for 60 days, as Dita explained all of these details related to how we will deal with risk assessments and timber risk profiles. For this presentation and also for risk assessment, we use a broad number of sources of information available for Ukraine. For example, we consider the current finding scenario. This is one very important information that we take into account. But at the same time, we have some internal guides. We have some other things that we are taking into account in order to make a summary related to risks that are from this country and what are the level of information. But what is important is that in order to understand the risk from a specific country, the first thing that I think all of us will need to do is to understand a bit the forest sector from that country. And just to make a short overview about how forestry is working in case of Ukraine, practically this country has around 10 million hectares of forest, which is growing in 5 forest regions. And what is also very important is that all forests are natural or semi-natural. And in this country, in the forest area, it is not likely to have exotic species, for example, like eucalypt, planted on that land. At the same time, there is no plantation in the country. What we have as planted forest means that human is doing the regeneration, because the nature cannot do it himself. So we, even if in that case what is used is the species that are known as grow in a specific area. At the same time, the most important document that each forest management enterprise should use in daily activities that they are doing is the forest management plan. This is a document that is developed by one specific organization. At this point, there are at national level 2 organizations that can do this. So the FME, the Forest Management Enterprise, have option to choose one of them. And they are known as institute, are organization that belongs to state, and they have specialized staff that is working on preparing the forest management plan. So they know all of this information that they will need to take into account. And what is also important in this case is that in order to develop a new forest management plan, what is important is that a forest inventory should be done, and at the same time, one principle for developing the forest management plan is continuity of forest management. So in other words, you cannot prepare a forest management plan that will say that you will need to cut all the forests that you will manage, and after that you'll just make regeneration. You have a certain limit that you'll need to is the maximum limit that you could take into account in order to ensure that the forest will continue on a specific land. And at the same time, on the inventory part, there are a lot of new tools that it's used. They are using GIS technology and other tools that are important on this inventory. After that, related to the harvesting activities, on that case, we have 2 types of documents that it's used in Ukraine. The first one is the logging ticket. Logging ticket known also as a filling ticket. On this document, you'll find information related to the forest management enterprise name. You'll find out information related to the unit, harvesting method, harvesting type, forest category, compartment. So all the information that will help you to have an overview related to the wood that will be extracted from that area. And of course, at the same time, we have the volume information by different type of quality that you could obtain from that forest. At the same time, the second document that is used in connection with the harvesting activity is a technological map, which, even if the name includes map, is not just a map. It's a document that will explain to you how to conduct the harvesting activities. In case that there are some environmental requirements, these requirements will be there, and at the same time, other useful information related to how to conduct the harvesting will be there. So these are the information that we could have related to the harvesting activities. At the same time, when the wood is transported from the forest to the next tier of the supply chain, in that case, the forest management enterprise should issue a waybill. a waybill that is usually generated by an IT system. It's printed from the system, but on that case, there are few cases when instead of using an IT system, could be a waybill that is handwritten, but these cases are not too many. And yeah, what is more common is to have this printed waybill on the system. At the same time, I would say that in case of Ukraine, we have multiple state databases that could help you to check information related to a specific area or related to a specific FME. For example, we have this ukforest.com, a website where you could find, for example, and check if you have an waybill. You could put the number of the waybill and you could check to see if the waybill is genuine or not. At the same time, on this website, we could check the logging tickets. If you will put the number, you could check the number ticket. You could see all the information as you have on the hard copy of this document. And at the same time, what is nice on that the platform is that you will be able also to see the area of harvest, where it's located. And the third thing that you could use is inspection portal. It's a website where all the results of the control done by different state agencies are there. And you are able to see, for example, for your forest management enterprise, if there is a risk identified by different state agencies. And after that, you could ask them to see what they are doing in order to mitigate this risk. But to go a little bit further with this part related to Ukraine, in our risk assessment that is under development, we split the source from Ukraine into 3 categories. The first category means the wood that is obtained from forest owned and managed by the state forest resource agency. Practically, what this means is that the forests that are owned by the state, in a short way, this is the most category, is the biggest category of wood, where the wood could come from, as represent 80% of forest land. And usually this category is FSC certified, so it's more simple to search certified wood on that category. The second one is forest that it's owned and managed by other entities other than state agency. On that case, we could have communal property, we could have some small private property, less than 0.1% of the total forest area. And on this category, as far as I know, there are not too many that are certified, and it's a different risk profile comparing with the first category. And the third one is the category where it's from our side and based on information that we receive from different sources, it is unlikely to conclude with negligible risk. And the wood that is on this category is wood that is coming from Autonomous Republic of Crimea, the wood that is coming from Donetsk and Lugansk, where it's some issue related to the national security and defense. At the same time, the area that is close to the Chernobyl. And the last one is from the forests that are not included in the forest land, practically. So yeah, this is the sources that are in Ukraine. At the same time, our draft results of this evaluation shows that there are a lot of categories with risk for Ukraine, and between the even if there is a difference between the forest owned and managed by the state and the second category that is managed by other entities, it's usually the risk is in both categories. Just on the first one related to the land tenure and management rights, just in this category, we have specified risk for forest owned and managed by other entities, and we have low risk for forest owned and managed by the state. And during the next minutes, our local expert, Ihor, will talk about some 3 examples of risk from Ukraine, and will give also some mitigation measures that we are recommended in our evaluation. So what we'll talk about is something that is related to the timber harvesting regulation, related to the value taxes and other taxes, and payment of royalties and harvesting fees. Ihor, also we'll talk about protected species and sites. Ihor, if you'd like, you can unmute yourself and start the presentation related to the sanitary cuttings.
Yes.
Oh, Ihor, your connection is a little bit slow. I think.
So,
Ihor, your connection is a little bit slow. I think I suggest you don't use your video. So both Ihor and Bogdan, maybe if you just close your video so we have full connection.
Okay, I'll try this way. Good.
Yeah, I think
it's better now.
Thank you. It's good now. Thank you, Ihor.
Okay, good. So then we can move. Okay, we have the right slide. Good. So if to talk about risks of sanitary cutting, this issue is really widely discussed, and you can find numerous publications about Ukraine, including Airside report and more recent publication where the sanitary cuttings are mentioned as risk. And there is a risk that there are some violations and not fulfillment of some requirements. There are specific rules for sanitary cuttings and for designation of areas for clear sanitary cutting or selective sanitary cutting. But on which stage you can have some risks? It can be on a stage of obtaining permit, documents for cuts, like we see on this illustration, good picture for it. For example, for environmental impact assessment of the harvesting, you need to have the area no more than 1 hectare. But in some cases, you can get few permits. All of them will be less than 1 hectare, but they will have some common border, and in reality, it will be much higher area. I would not say that there are no risks, that there are no reasons for sanitary cuttings. We have really the state of forest in many areas in Ukrainian Carpathian, in Buliga zones, with spruce forests and with other, even now with pine forests, which need sanitary cutting. But there are also situations when some FMEs are at the situation with some financial problems, and they just are interested in having more such cuttings. So situation can be different, and we should look precisely in each case. Is it reasonable to have this sanitary cutting, or it's just other reason? Other things is a silence period for sanitary cutting. According to the rules for sanitary cutting, we have this silent period from April 1 to June 15, And at this period, sanitary cuttings are not allowed. It should be respected. It's according to the law on forest fauna. It's not the regulation for harvesting, but in this law on fauna, it is requested, among other things, to have this silence period. We can move to next slide. Okay, thank you. What can be mitigation measures? There are three types of measures, as you can see on the slide. We can ensure, first of all, that wood is not originated from sanitary cutting. On a document which Bogdan previously showed you, in particular on waybill, it's always mentioned which type of cutting we have actually. So if it's sanitary cutting, you can just simply avoid if you have some doubts. Other things is just to ensure that the volume of wood from other types of cutting is enough for production on final products. So it's always can be easily calculated, because sometimes the share of sanitary cutting is really high in some area. And in particular, Bogdan mentioned two categories of the three categories actually where wood can origin. So in some areas, it's observed that share of sanitary cuttings is higher on forests with other FMEs than from State Forest Resource Agency. Second options would be to purchase certified wood and check sample and to make sample check. You can just check the waybills, total volume of, and as a complementary, if described, it can be on-site visit to sanitary cuttings. And the third option is with non-certified wood. If you buy such, you should ensure that sanitary cuttings are planned and harvested according to the legal requirements. It will be the same time actually of niches, but when you have on-site visit of sanitary cutting, you will have higher sample rate of this of checking the field sites to be sure that they are done appropriately. Of course, not always on a harvesting area when it's done, you can check it, but sometimes it's just ongoing cutting or other things will allow you to define was it correct or no on the stems or other things. We can move forward. Okay, what will be the things with taxes? I would like to stress that the direct breaking of the rules of paying taxes are quite rare, because some of them are going automatically with sales operations, others very strictly controlled by state agencies. Of course, if there are financial problems of some FMEs, they can have delay of payment, first of all, to local budgets, because of some harvesting payments are going to local budget, to communities, and maybe also to state budget, but they will need to get some permissions. They will write letter asking to have a little delay with the payment. But there are other options, that if you have some incorrect assessment of volume and quality of size, it can happen that the data for calculated taxes will be wrong. If there are wrong data, so you have wrong estimates, and it can happen on different stages. On a calculating of standing stock, and there are cases of manipulation when there is some inventory or something or similar operation.
Ihor, right now we cannot hear you. So we'll just give it a few seconds to see if
Questions are going when FME is interested. The difference should be no more than 10%. So in case if it's higher, you should have some specific acts, but it's also the possible risk. And directly when you're selling the wood, the risks are possible as well at this stage when the category estimated of wood for sale and also separation with sales. We can move forward. What will be the measurements, mitigation measurements? One of the measurements would be just to buy certified wood. Of course, some of the taxes issues are also checked during the FSC audit. And also, it's important to ensure that fuel wood is not used in highly quality products like furniture, veneer. We recently noticed such cases looking at bills and invoices when it's written fuel wood, and later you see that it's used for production of really high quality products. You can have doubts why fuel wood used for higher quality products. And the company was surprised, like, what we did wrong. We bought what was available for low price, but it really looks suspicious. Non-certified wood. In this case, it's important to ensure the assessment of size quality was done correctly. It can happen very simply, just in case when you visit production facility and look what products are and what's written in documents, which was conversion factor, again, to ensure that fuel wood is not used in highly quality products like furniture, veneer, or others, by checking the way bills. And will be helpful also to visit forest management unit and to evaluate records, doing some sampling, and also visiting harvesting sites. Okay, let's move to the issue of the protected sites and species. Actually, each FME have a list of protected areas with so-called passports for each of area and clear prescription what is allowed, what is not allowed at this territory. But recent observation when there is conflict among environmental NGO and some FME, when FME is saying we already created protected area and it's enough, we can't extend it, and the NGO is saying but you still have some protected species which are not protected, and you have commercial harvesting in this area. And we are not sure in this case, yes, of course, that all formally the protected site exists, but according to the law, nothing is broken, but it's not fulfilled the task of protection really of some valuable species and biodiversity in general. And so we should be sure that all of these sites and species are identified. Next, there is a so-called technological map with actually lodging document, which contain clear different requirements, both technology, and it has specific section for environmental requirements like site condition and maybe some habitats, other things. And you can find the cases where when on this section is nothing written, or it's written something, but later when you talk to those who do logging operation, or contractors or workers of the FME know nothing about this requirement, so it's another issue. And also it's not easy to get permits to have some selective cutting in protected area, but it can also happen that there are
So it seems we have a gap in the sound again. Let's see if Ihor comes back soon.
they are in communal or other projects. They have really high recreational and protective values, and the logins are too intensive, and it's a cases when there is a risk also that some important functions of forest are under evaluated and are not taken into account. That maybe probably everything with sites and species. Okay. We can move to mitigation measures. Okay, good. So what we can do with the mitigation measures on protected sites and species, we can also, in case we can buy certified wood, of course, much more chances that this territory is the territories that protected areas are identified because of representative areas and many other indicators. In case when we buy non-certified wood, we should ensure that wood is not originated from protected sites, species, because their locations are known and can be identified. We can request some documents on protected sites, which I mentioned, like passports of this area. We can ask environmental inspection reports. Sometimes these reports are quite full of information and they are prescribed high penalties for breaking these rules, but they are a good source of information. And also to check are some overlaps on protected site species and harvesting area. If you will look for the number of compartments and subcompartments, you can identify it. And generally, we should ensure that rules related to protected site species are followed. It can be what I mentioned earlier, the silent period and the actual date of harvesting operation, and as well as direct visit to on-site visits to harvesting area and observing what is going on, and is it really corresponds to harvesting maps, tick harvesting, login tickets, and other documents. It's another measure. Okay.
Thank you very much, Ihor, for this this presentation on the risks. So just to conclude on the point related to the certification, because it came up a lot related to these three risks, and there are some points that could be, as you could see, could be mitigated by certification. At the same time, I would say that as a conclusion that most of the risks that are from identified in Ukraine are you are able to mitigate through the certification. At the same time, in case that a company is purchasing wood from a high quantity of wood from Ukraine, it may include also additional measure to ensure that things that are done are in line with EOTR requirements, are in line with the policy developed by the company and so on. And one of the, for example, related to the first is that we are talking about the sanitary cutting. One of the simple measures that an organization could do is to avoid wood from that type of harvesting. It's quite simple, and it's the most effective that you could do, ensuring that you don't have issues that are related to this type of cutting. Related to the measurement of wood on different steps, because in Ukraine there are 3 different steps when wood is measured. In that case, the same. It is important to check if product and request product with certification, and at the same time you could have a small additional measure like to check if fuel wood is used in high quality products. And related to the third risk that we explain related to the protected site and species, in that case, it's clear that certification will help to ensure that protected sites are identified and all the measures are taken into account, because on the certification, what is also important is that also stakeholder consultation is done, which will help this process and will make things more clear. At the same time, in case of certified wood, what you could take into account as a complementary measure is you could check the public summary reports. You could check in the public summaries if there are non-conformities that are related to the legal non-compliance. You could consult online databases to check different things. And of course, what is also recommended is to visit the supplier, and as I said at the start of this presentation, to be in touch with local experts in order to understand what you have. And all of these measures are somehow focused on the certification part of the product. And from our side, what we are thinking is that the effort to mitigate the risk for non-certified wood is quite expensive, and not expensive, it's quite high, the effort, comparing to implement and request the FSC certification and to apply a minimum set of additional measures. And for that, at the same time, the cost for non-certified products could be much higher comparing to case certified products, and to apply the minimum set of information. But on next period, as I said, during the summer, we will publish the first draft of Ukraine timber risk assessment, together with risk mitigation guide, a document guide, and a list of applicable legislation. And in case that you would like to join on this process just to see the draft, or if you would like to give us information and your expertise or your information that you have related to Ukraine, feel free to write to our email and to give this information. Okay, that's it from today from our side. If you have questions, then we'll try to answer it.